Haha, you're public domain now. There's no other reason for this guy to live. That is literally how the entire system works, mate.
Abuse children.
That sounds terrifying.
I don't like these characters.
Because he earned it, you prick.
Yeah, Satanism. I paid for child abuse. Like, come on.
Oh, you had an interview with the king. What do you mean my wish wasn't granted? Why the fuck did I ever raise you?
Oh my god.
Your art of manipulation was flawless.
Like, if she was, like, in a black dress, like, with, like, green, like, fog and shit, like, with green eyes.
I can't wait for all these people to be seen as oh so great, and the villains, like, you know, oh so bad, even though the villains are totally fucking right.
Why are they bullying this guy?
What's wrong with, like, guys, what the fuck?
She was recruiting them into her cult. That's not exactly looking out for people.
Oh.
You'd say that about yourself, of course. I can't do it anymore.
I've seen pieces of media that literally try to manipulate children into fucking fascism. Get it, audience? I'm a good person. Asha's just very high.
Drugs. Crazy? I was crazy once.
Ugh. Vi. Ugh. My granddaddy couldn't fucking play the mandolin. Down with the system.
I'm gonna kill myself. Are you telling me that he becomes a fucking mirror? No.
This movie... This fucking movie. Oh, kill yourself. It's like when a parent is doing it. Damn, that was fucking
sorry,
guttural.
I'm so sorry.
Alright, get Satan back in your fucking system for a second. But yeah. This is gonna be a utopia for fucking 10 minutes.
Oh, check!
I'm gonna kill myself. Oh no, our wish didn't get granted, us most affected. The kingdom's fine. This script was not written by people. I refuse to believe it was written by people.
Are they gonna establish communism?
In old Disney films, if he did that, they would just die. So anyways, to go back to my point before the movie made me want to fucking die, the AI is out of touch. When a literal fish is better at being a fascist.
Was that the wish of 87?
Probably wondering why.
Shut the fuck up!
Yep.
You saw two things, bitch. Shut the fuck up. Turn my wrist into a fucking zippity-doo-dah.
When you... No. No.
Oh, kill yourself. So Wish is the movie that they decided to make in order to celebrate the 100-year anniversary of a company that everyone has grown to collectively dislike over the past few decades. This film was made with the promise that it would make you feel like you're watching an old Disney movie, one full of whimsy and charm, like the great classics from the many ages of animation. And it certainly makes you feel nostalgic with all the references and nods to the older movies, nostalgic in the fact that you wish you were watching those instead of this. Now, I was going into this movie knowing it was going to be lackluster. Nothing good was being said about this film whatsoever on both sides. The discourse had me hyped at the fact that this film was gonna be a fun ride. What I ended up getting instead, however, was a movie that filled me with so many thoughts and opinions that this very video now exists. There are themes in this film, problems with this film, and problems with this film. And I'll be going into extensive detail about why I found this film to be a shallow, soulless, and beyond irredeemable movie that was way worse than I ever thought it was going to be. So let me set up the foundation and give you a brief rundown of the general plot. Wish takes place in the city of Rosas, a paradise on an island in the Mediterranean Sea built by a mighty sorcerer and king named Magnifico. The city is one of great prosper and wonder as the king has the special power to grant people's wishes, which they earn by being worthy to the kingdom. Asha, the main character of the movie, is going in for an interview to become the king's apprentice, and hopes to get the king to grant her grandfather's wish as he had just turned 100. The king does not take the request well, and after threatening Asha with the idea of never granting not just her grandfather's but her mother's wish as well for her disobedience to the crown, Asha looks to the stars for guidance where one literally comes down to help. Through this, hijinks involving dark magic, talking animals, colorful characters, and many references calling back to older Disney films are on full display, carrying the charm and grandeur of a corpse hanging by its own intestines. Wish contains everything that a classic Disney movie had in the past. Heroes, a villain, supporting cast, magic systems, a soundtrack containing various songs, a message at the end. You name it, it has it. However, Wish, despite having all these qualities taken from the vast library of his predecessors, uses all these tools with the same grace and grandeur of an ignorant child. There is a fundamental misunderstanding about the Disney formula that turns Wish from being just a forgettable film to an egregious and disrespectful homage to the classics that came before it. And the best way to illustrate this is to go through each aspect of the Disney formula in greater detail, to truly highlight what went wrong with this film. Starting with what is a Disney movie without a memorable protagonist? From Snow White's charming kindness to Elsa's dealing with responsibility as Queen of Arendelle, Disney protagonists, while not always stealing the spotlight of their respective movies, is still an integral part of what made Disney so successful. Through the hero's story, we see arcs that help teach great life lessons to the audiences that watch them, and with newer kinds of protagonists being shown on screen, more interesting stories have the potential to be told. Watching a protagonist take down an evil threat and grow and learn throughout their respective movies really shows the incredible power of great storytelling. Which I cannot say about Wish. Wish has Asha as the heroine of this story. She's bubbly, quirky, and believes in the best for others. All admirable traits for a main character to have. However, these traits trail from being decent aspects of her character and very quickly become the thing that tears the story apart from the inside out. First, the quirkiness. Because Disney is trying to get away from the kind of girl characters they made back in the day, back when they were based, they decided that appealing to the theater kids was the way to go forward. This started and peaked with Rapunzel from Tangled, and it just got worse from there. One thing I can give this archetype is that despite it being a bit annoying that every second Disney film does this, there was at least a story reason for why the girl was written this way. For Rapunzel and Anna, it was because they were both alone for the majority of their lives, only having minimal contact with people in the outside world. And for Mirabelle, she's like that because she's the outcast of the family, the one who is deemed to be imperfect. With them, it made sense, despite the trope being a bit tired at this point. But for Asha, it doesn't really make sense on why she acts the way she does. There's no real context or backstory that makes us believe this at all. She is quirky solely because of the archetype and nothing else. Asha is just another Disney quirky girl, and because of this, she comes off as insincere when it comes to certain scenes. She'll say something that's very fairy tale-like and then usually follow that up with a line that just reeks of self-awareness.
It was electric. Wonder inside the most loving light. Am I be loving? I sound ridiculous, don't I?
I swear the MCU was just a mistake to cinema. But quirkiness is something I can tolerate if the character is at least going on a meaningful journey throughout the film. And does Asha have that going for her? Well, Asha starts off the film as having a massive love for her family and adores the kingdom she's lived in for all her life. She loves the kingdom so much that she's a designated tour guide and sings her home's praises in order to convert more people into their cult. Advertise how prosperous the kingdom is thanks to its wish-granting king. She has such a good presence in the kingdom that she's offered a chance to get an interview with the king to become an apprentice, and at first, she's doing well for herself by earning the king's trust. So much so that he even takes her backstage, so to speak, to see what he's doing with all the wishes. Now at the start, Asha was hyping up the idea that because the wish ceremony was happening on the same day as her grandfather's 100th birthday, it was destiny that his wish would get granted. So Asha, having gotten an interview with the king, took her chance to ask him if he could grant it. However, this does not go well.
Well, that was fast, wasn't it? You know, most people wait a few months, even a year, before they start asking me for things.
I'm so sorry.
And what ensues is an argument that, once I looked back at the film, makes Asha into a very entitled character. She finds out that most of the wishes don't actually get granted by the king, and he keeps them in his castle so that they can be safe. Asha takes this as the king holding their souls hostage and says he makes them forget the most beautiful part of themselves. This argument without context does sound like it's convincing, given that we've seen her friend Simon change drastically after he gave his wish up, according to his friends anyway. But everyone else seems to be doing a-okay for themselves, even the adults who most likely have given their wishes to the king and haven't got them granted yet. While her concerns are fine given her naivete of the system, Asha never considers afterwards that maybe she was being too selfish and that just because she got an interview with the king, she shouldn't have felt entitled to him granting her grandfather's wish. But the problem is that this one act of telling her no is what sparks her entire arc throughout the rest of the movie. The movie treats the act of this one old man not getting his wish as if it's the worst thing to ever happen in the history of Rosas, justifying Asha in her bad behavior and making you think she's justified in starting a revolution to take down the king. Bitch, you got an interview. What makes you think that just because you got that, it means you get special benefits? And why is her family treating her not taking advantage of the system like it's a bad thing? Like, piss off, old man, you aren't the center of the fucking universe. Asha lives in a kingdom that most people would kill to be in, yet she feels like because the king has limitations on who gets their wishes granted, this paradise is not good enough. It's her fault that she overstepped and feels betrayed that the king didn't accept her request. Her selfishness throughout the film isn't shown to be bad, but heroic, making her out to be a martyr that is willing to accept every wish regardless of its quality. This character arc for Asha was just wrong. She learns absolutely nothing and doubles down on everything, leaving her to be incredibly underdeveloped. The thing that could have saved Asha's character would have been for her to have been called out for her naivety. Her pure ideas of all wishes being equal and good should have been seen as a bad, even delusional philosophy to have, one that could very easily be tarnished and manipulated if the wrong teeth were to ever sink in. In the wish room, she should have been exposed to wishes that aren't good, ones that were very selfish and even corrupt. Magnifico could have started her arc on reconsidering everything she once believed to be true. That way, the song This Wish would be more akin to a Let It Go style song, one that illustrates a character indulging in bad behavior for temporary satisfaction. She should have realized by the climax of the story that relying on wishes to achieve happiness and your dreams and going to people in power in order to get them granted was a very flawed system and a horrible way to live a life. With this realization and call to action, her revolution should have been about dismantling this old way of life, and usher in a new, more realistic system. One where if people worked together to achieve each other's dreams, happiness in community and bonds with others would prove that they didn't need to have their wishes granted, but just needed to look out for one another all along, showing that the true essence of happiness isn't achieving every dream you've ever had, but living a good and honest life. That would have been a fantastic character arc for Asha. While her values and outlooks on life would have been changed drastically from the start of the film, she would have grown into a more wise and mature character, whose exposures to the faults in her own thinking helped build her up rather than tear her down. She would be a child's inspiration to do good for others, and understand when and where to show kindness, a wonderful thing that kids of many future generations could look up to and aspire to be like. She would be, in short, another classic Disney princess. But that's not what happened. Instead, Asha's whole arc was that she was right all along. Her way of thinking was the right way of thinking, no flaws or cracks in her beliefs whatsoever. She's right when she says that wishing is the most important thing in the world. All wishes are equal and good, right? What do you mean a tiny bit of nuance would kill this story? Asha suffers from a trend I'm seeing more and more in fiction nowadays, and it's a trend that needs to stop. Asha never gets truly challenged on her beliefs. Magnifico is the only one who ever tells her that her way of thinking is wrong, and the film bends itself over backwards to try and make it out like he's the one being unreasonable and not Asha. Asha never goes through an arc of realizing that relying on wishes to be happy is a terrible idea, nor does she even learn that there might be more kinds of wishes than just good and pure ones. The film does nothing but justify and praise her for the mindset that she has, and she gets rewarded at the end with getting the power to grant other people's wishes. Funny, because I don't remember the fairy godmother having less rights than Cinderella, but hey, I digress. She's constantly being enabled and justified by the narrative, and never changes because of it. The Asha you see at the start of the movie and the Asha you see at the end of the movie are the exact same character, and all that revealed to me was a protagonist that has the complexity and richness of a muddy puddle.
You care too much.
I do? Wait,
Oh,
is
what
that
a
what we
great
said?
character.
I do?
trait.
She's-
You care too
Hang on,
much.
hang on. I do? She doesn't even know her own character.
Asha is just not a good character to watch. She perfectly represents the kind of people whose sole identity is down with the system even when the system is fine. People who blame everything and everyone else for their shortcomings yet claim to be selfless and kind. The ones that say they despise monarchy but are perfectly fine with establishing one if they can be in charge. She is not a protagonist that's worth looking up to or even liking. She is a privileged, entitled, and whiny brat that took down a perfectly working system because she wanted her family's wishes to get granted over everything else. Totally a great protagonist that kids would not get the wrong lessons from. And you know what's worse? She's not the only one. Let's talk about the people who live in the city of Rosas, and let me show you why this kingdom is far too good for them. The best way I can describe the people living in Rosas is one simple word: entitled. This society of wish granting has created a sea of characters that would fit more in a cautionary tale story rather than a whimsical Disney movie. And I think the best way to explain my reasoning would be to compare this society to an older Disney film with a similar concept: Pinocchio and Pleasure Island. Do you remember how in that film, Pleasure Island had this very uncomfortable vibe to it? Taking out the fact that you were aware that something was going to happen to the boys who go, there's just something about this place that's just off. There's this sickly discomfort when you see these boys indulge in their selfish and destructive behaviors. For a good few minutes, things go too well for the boys. There's no consequences to their bad actions, at least not yet. And when the consequences come crashing down in a scene that will forever be the fucking best scene that Disney's ever animated on screen, your fears and discomforts towards Pleasure Island are completely vindicated, resulting in a very powerful scene that hammered home the dangers of indulging in bad habits. Seriously, it's insane on just how well Pinocchio was aced, and it was their second movie. The same can be said for the city of Rosas, an island far away from any society, filled with people who give their wishes to a king, waiting patiently and hoping that their time will come, even showing signs that they aren't themselves when they do it and forget what they wished for. Yeah, that sounds kinda fucked, doesn't it? In any other film, this society would be screaming with red flags, and the story of the film should have been told to show kids what happens when you just hope someone will grant your wish, instead of building yourself towards achieving it yourself. A very valuable lesson that promotes kids to work hard and find value in other areas of their lives. But the issue is that isn't how Rosas is painted. This way of life that in any other story would be akin to a fascist government is instead painted, by the end of the movie, to be a perfectly good thing. There's no problems with this philosophy whatsoever. The only problem that arises in this film is that people don't get their wishes granted faster. Everyone should have their dreams made real, no questions asked. The people of Rosas feel like they're owed to have their wishes granted, which is a thing that makes the people of Rosas go from naive and possibly sympathetic to suddenly selfish and bratty. These people hear the words wish ceremony and go into a fucking frenzy, something that the movie for some reason paints as being perfectly acceptable behavior. Asha's friends are also like this and are incredibly unlikable as a result. Being a nod towards the Seven Dwarfs from Snow White, these characters suffer from the very common problem films have when they have a large cast of characters, especially ones in more supportive roles. That problem being that there's barely, if any, development towards them, solely because there's too many of them. Encanto had this problem as well with the family Madrigals, but here it feels really obvious. When I say that these guys act as just the dwarf they were based on, that's literally all they do. They stick to their reference to a T, but are done in a lol random aren't they weird and cute kind of way, as opposed to being anything truly sincere or charming. For example, Gabo, who represents Grumpy, is by far the worst fucking person in this group. If Grumpy in the original was mainly just an old fart who had a soft side that he was desperately trying to hide from everyone, then Gabo is the cunty kid that you only hang out with due to circumstance. Every line that comes out of this character is nothing short of, no pun intended, grating. He's always ready to put somebody down whether they deserve it or not. making him such an annoyance to watch since the film treats it like he's being funny when he's just being mean for no reason.
Not that I blame you for trying to cheat the system.
That's how the system works, retard. What are you talking about?
Life is so unfair. Hey, look at me. Don't worry. We'll be here for you when you fail. Wait, isn't your Saba turning 100 today and still wait?
What's wrong with Simon here?
Is it? I don't know. You're kind of boring now. No offense. Never trust a handsome face. That's why I hang out with you guys.
My fucking god, you sound like a teenager on Twitter. This kid isn't grumpy. He's just a slimy little cunt. And even worse, an inconsistent one at that.
They say her family's gone missing. I bet she killed them.
Be the king's most valiant.
Just not a loyal friend. No, we're not safe anywhere. We're fugitives. Thanks to Asha.
She said she just wanted her family to have their wishes back.
Oh, and you believed her?
Gee, I wonder why Simon would rat Asha out after all the bullshit he had to put up with when he hung out with you guys. Whose side are you on, you fucking Redditor? You know you're not doing a good job when the original dwarves from 1937 were way more memorable from a film that most people theoretically haven't seen since they were like 5. The 7 dwarves deserved so much more respect. They were so charming. And everybody else is just... literally, I've got nothing. Like, they just do shit because they're the dwarf. The only friend that I felt a shred of likeness towards was Simon, only because I got so annoyed at the fact that this guy was being bullied and ridiculed by his friends and kingdom every chance they got. Simon, who is obviously adapted from Sleepy, is shown to be a more depressed kind of tired. Someone who, rather than being taken seriously, is someone who is joked and teased to by his friends. Because yes, Disney, this kind of thing is obviously very funny, totally fucking hilarious. You could have gotten away with it if you didn't have an AI write your fucking script. The film absolutely drags him for ratting out Asha, but whoo boy, after what I've seen, I can at least understand.
Asha, I'm sorry. And I don't expect you to forgive me. I was just so scared I'd have to live without all of me. And I wanted so badly to believe in him.
Man, Simon, you are the closest thing to being an actual human being in this kingdom. You deserve better friends. But the side characters that I grew to hate the most out of this dumpster fire of a cast was Valentino the goat and Asha's family. Let's start with Valentino. This goat had so many jokes, and yet I laughed at absolutely none of them. He's half of the reason this film feels so insincere, because he can't go 2 seconds without ruining a heartfelt scene by cracking a shitty joke.
And we ride! I'm sorry. I was right in your ear. No! I cannot swim! Perfect. Shark!
What?
No, I have not seen a shark. I'm just practicing.
Then Star needs to leave. Like right now.
No. If anyone's leaving, it's gotta be you. Must pull together on my count. 1, 2.
Wait, what?
I can't count.
You ruined it. You ruined it and I'm leaving.
I swear, making him talk was such a massive mistake. He adds nothing of value to this movie. You could take him out of this film and I can tell you with absolute confidence that barely anything would change. He's the textbook definition of wasted space. But even with him adding nothing to the plot besides vindicating my already raging hatred of Marvel and what it's done to modern movies, my dislike to him doesn't come anywhere near close to the hatred I have to Asha's family. These parents are by far the most shallow and selfish characters I think Disney has ever created. Because even selfish parents in the past Disney films were treated like they were wrong. Not only do these characters never have a conversation with Asha that doesn't involve wishes, seriously, what the fuck is this movie's unhealthy obsession with wishes, Jesus Christ. But like I said before, the story thinks that the grandfather not getting his wish on his 100th birthday was an act of complete cruelty. Like, just because he got old, he somehow owed his wish for whatever reason. When was that ever a factor of the film? Gramps, you're not the only fucking person who didn't get their wish granted that day. Get over yourself. Maybe have some fucking awareness that thinking your granddaughter was gonna rig the system in your favor was a very shitty thing to think about. Maybe, I don't know, be grateful for the fact that despite not getting your wish granted, you still have a loving family and you live in a wonderful place that allowed you to live for 100 fucking years? Also, just a quick note, if it's true that you forget the wish if you give it to the king, why would you be depressed if it wasn't granted? That doesn't make any sense. Is there anything else that these fuckers think about other than getting their wishes granted? Christ, what is wrong with you people? As for Asha's mother, she's just as shallow. She has fallen for the propaganda so hard that she shows more love and affection towards her wish than her own daughter. She literally calls her wish getting destroyed grief, and it's like, woman, holy shit, fuck off.
My heart knows this feeling. This is grief.
It's so horrible to see this kind of mindset be played like these people are just, oh, so innocent dreamers who just need to be given a chance in order to create great things. They live in a very comfortable place, and there's nothing stopping them from achieving those dreams themselves. Grandpa could have learned to play an instrument in the time he spent waiting on his wish getting granted, but nope, gotta rely on the system. That's a great message to tell kids. Because the real kicker is that going to the king is shown to be an option, not a requirement.
The journey is too hard, it is too unfair. They give their wishes to me willingly.
You know what would have been incredible? You know what would have been great writing? She just drops the wish. My wish isn't important. I changed my wish. It's you. But nah, what's important to her? Her fucking wish. And because these people are so allergic to the idea of self-agency and independence, their lack of hard work is painted to be the result of the king rather than them. And when the king goes fully evil, these people paint him as if he was bad all along. Because of course it's all the king's fault. It can't be because all the pressure put on him by his people would have factored into him going down a dark path. It can't be because the people, despite living in paradise, still feel like they're owed something. And it certainly can't be that these people are so fucking shallow that giving up their wishes means that they lose their whole personality and drive. What do you mean there's more to life than getting your every want and desire given to you? Shh, don't say the quiet part out loud. Come on, the movie is gonna fall apart. Because, like, God, I'm usually a massive fan of rebellion stories. Nothing hits harder than a person or people, after going through so much loss and hardship, finally fight back against their oppressor and establishing a better future. It's good fucking soup when it's justified, or at the very least, understandable. But this revolution was so unearned. These people are some of the most pathetic and ungrateful pieces of shit that I've seen in a while. They lived in complete peace and prosperity, yet they still spat in the face of their king and demand that he do more than he already has. What the fuck? There's no moment of introspection, no moment of thinking that maybe they were the reason the king went nuts. Nothing. There's nothing. They act like spoilt children for the entire movie, and the film has the fucking gall to tell you that these guys are the heroes. And they deserve to get their wishes granted, despite all the bad behavior that they have shown throughout the entire fucking runtime. How this script ever got greenlit never fails to amaze me. The absolute state of this fucking company, Jesus Christ. But now that I am deep into the subject of this film's twisted moral views, let's have an in-depth conversation about the villain of the story, Magnifico. Wish desperately wants its audience to view this guy as an irredeemable threat. He was advertised to be the resurgence of the classic Disney villain, being someone along the lines of famous foes like Jafar, Frollo, Scar, Gaston, and Ursula, villains that lived and breathed to be pieces of shit who reveled in others' suffering. This villain is something everybody has longed for Disney to go back to. I mean, when you keep in mind that Last Wish had Jack Horner, who has a bigger fanbase than his fucking factory, the idea of a completely irredeemable piece of shit is something that would go very well for Disney. But here's the problem. That does not happen. What the movie ended up creating from this idea was a character with so much nuance and so much integrity that it made Magnifico into the most likable and, dare I say, justified person in the whole film. Let me show you why. Magnifico became a sorcerer and mastered his art of magic because his family's land was robbed and destroyed by thieves. He fled to a deserted island and, with the help of his wife, made the island into the city of Rosas. He rules over the kingdom with no signs of poverty or suffering and allows wishes to be granted if they are within reason and don't pose a threat to the paradise he's created. This is the core part of Magnifico's character that so far doesn't sound villainous, but rather reasonable. This description matches more of a good king who is looking out for his people while also making sure that his power isn't threatened by someone with malicious intentions. So how does the film go about making Magnifico out to be a villain? Well, the film tries to do this in the scene where Asha is meeting with Magnifico, and because she passes the test, like I said before, Magnifico allows her to see behind the curtains, yada yada yada, you know this point by now, I'm not going to keep repeating myself. After a song that had so much potential to be both a loving and manipulative track if handled better, more on that later, Magnifico opens up a bit to Asha by revealing that his biggest wish was for someone to be the greatest apprentice a sorcerer could ask for.
You know, Asha, I would love to see someone wish to be the best apprentice a mighty sorcerer has ever had. What do you say?
A wish that is, you know, quite nice. But like I showed you before, rather than even getting a hint that Asha even listened to his request, Asha does this.
Would you maybe consider granting his wish tonight?
Magnifico's request to have Asha be his greatest apprentice and provide great protection to his kingdom had fallen on deaf ears, because Asha, rather than fulfilling her promise to him, wants him to grant her grandfather's wish, thinking that because she passed a test, this was a reasonable request. Magnifico's reaction to her doing this paints clear as day just how frustrated he is with that.
Well, that was fast, wasn't it? You know, most people wait a few months, even a year, before they start asking me for things.
This is something that Magnifico probably had to deal with from the very beginning of his days as a sorcerer. That thing being people asking him to grant theirs and others' wishes before thinking about doing something that could help him. His reaction doesn't feel like it's someone who feels entitled to someone's destiny. He just looks genuinely annoyed that his want for someone to look out for him and his kingdom has constantly been ignored. In record time by Asha, mind you. This is where the scene takes a turn for the worst, and the movie really tries to hammer home that Magnifico is a jerk by doing some very sly storytelling that only makes him sound unreasonable if you're not paying attention. Magnifico accepts Asha's request and asks if he can see the wish. And when he analyzes it, he says this.
It is a beautiful wish. Beautiful. But unfortunately, it's too dangerous. Your saw belongs to create something to inspire the next generation. Great wish, but too vague. Create what? A rebellious mob? Destroy Rosas, maybe?
While it could be seen that Magnifico is acting too paranoid, keep in mind that this guy has no idea who Asha's grandfather is. He doesn't know what he could possibly mean by inspiring the next generation. After all, the greatest evils are sometimes painted with the best intentions. I mean, given what happens in the end, an argument can be made that he was right all along. His concern is perfectly valid, and while him telling Asha that she doesn't know any better because she's young is condescending, sure, I wouldn't classify this temporary moment of dickishness to be villainous, but rather someone who has just had enough of someone being too pushy. But alas, the moment goes on. He tells Asha that he, like I mentioned before, only grants the wishes that he deems are good for Rosas, which given how many people ask for things that wouldn't benefit anyone but themselves, I'm sure is a hard enough job as is. Asha fights back by realizing that most of the wishes in this room would never be granted, and Magnifico immediately fires back with,
So most of these wishes will never be granted?
Yet I still protect them like all the others.
I'm sorry, but how is that bad? Despite him knowing that there are wishes that could potentially end his kingdom's existence if they were to ever come true, Magnifico still allows them to be under his roof so that all the wishes he has given are equally protected. This is painted by the film to be something that's harsh and cruel, but given his position, he's being very generous with how he decides to handle the threatening wishes. Any other person would just destroy them immediately. Get the threat out of the way as quick as you can. This sounds like we're dealing with someone with principles that has proven to be successful. See, that's the thing. This argument sounds very forced, doesn't it? Something about this scene is off. This argument should not be making Asha look good, but very naive and too optimistic. And it doesn't take a long time to figure out what exactly this scene is missing. The sly technique that Wish does to make this argument work in Asha's favor is that it never actually shows you a bad wish. And when I mean bad, I mean a truly bad wish. something that would justify Magnifico banishing someone off his island if he ever got it. What if, just for an example, someone in the kingdom one day wished for the castle to burn to the ground? What if someone wished for the people to die of a plague? What if someone wished for a family member or friend to die? Hell, what if someone wished for something useless like wanting a new pair of shoes or having their dog talk?
What if the animals all come in like asking for like rights and shit because they don't have equal conscience? Fucking bear walks in like, hey, can I have a wish?
In Metropolis, where all mammals are equal. And wear clothes.
So they're implying that this fucking star invented Zootopia's bloodlines. Like,
yeah.
I'm gonna kill. I was joking earlier when I said the animals would ask for fucking rights.
The concept of a bad wish simply does not exist, not just in this scene, but in the whole movie. Because the film knows that if that side of the argument was shown, Asha would not be anywhere near as justified to be speaking out against the king's methods. This is one of the core problems with this film, the lack of nuance. Nuance would immediately kill this story. It needs to be so bare bone in its morality so that it can make Magnifico out as unreasonable for not granting every single wish he gets, which just sounds so entitled. There's also the fact that Magnifico not only protects the wishes and keeps them all safe, but he reveals to Asha that the only reason he has so many of them is because people go to him willingly to give him their wishes.
People come here because they know they can't make their own dreams come true. The journey is too hard, it is too unfair. They give their wishes to me willingly, and I make it so they forget their worries.
They realize that they can't make their own dreams come true, so they go to him in hopes that he will help them get there easier. And so, to make sure that they don't act out when it's not granted, Magnifico helps them to relieve them of their worries and make them forget about their wish, allowing them to stay in his kingdom and still enjoy the paradise he spent so many years building and refining to perfection. They also try to say throughout the film that the wishes do not belong to him, and I just want to ask the writers if they know what making a deal is, but I digress. Magnifico owns the wishes. The end. Back on point. Now this is a very interesting concept, because there is so much nuance that this idea could show off. This film could have dived into the idea that the kingdom, because it was built on wishes, makes it so that achieving dreams through hard work and dedication is basically impossible. So the reason why it's recommended and encouraged for people to go to the king for help is because they have no other option. Their hands are tied and they must rely on the system, which while consent is theoretically involved, it isn't true consent because there's no other way. With this, the king takes their wishes not by straight force, but through rigging of the system, making it so that people would come to him, worship him as a god, and keep their desires for greatness and grandeur all to himself. The spell that makes them forget their worries of failure could actually be far stronger, making them numb and brainwashed with the idea that one day their wish could possibly come true if they are a good enough citizen, which results in them staying on the island, never allowing the true secret of Rosas to ever get out. And if they did try to tell anyone, punishment would be severe or even deadly. This power play over the people would make Magnifico a disgusting villain. He would be someone that people could see as an exaggeration of people who actually exist, making his slimy ways very cruel and very fun to watch. And while that was probably the intention of the creators, that idea does not fit Magnifico. He doesn't strike me as someone who would maliciously not grant someone's wish to try and keep them under his thumb, but more like a king who is genuinely trying to make sure his kingdom is safe and prosperous, even if some of his methods are questionable. I don't see him letting people stay on his island as a means to threaten them and keep them quiet, but as a king who will still help his people. Sure, you could argue that he might be a bit strict and unfair with how he goes about granting wishes, but his methods have proven to be a system that has done nothing but good for the kingdom's existence. The story never establishes that people giving up their wish at 18 means that they can't pursue it themselves. If anything, the movie doesn't show anyone trying to make it on their own. Which makes me ask, who's really at fault? Is it Magnifico's fault that he made this system? Or is it the fault of his people after putting so much of themselves into their wishes, relying on him to grant them to be who they are? In a nuanced movie, the answer would be both. Both sides would have fed into each other and would push the other to greater extremes. But this film, like I said before, makes the people out to be innocent when they're just as much to blame for this conflict happening. Magnifico does nothing wrong in this scene to make this story paint him as a villain. Him lashing out at the end feels like he's just tired of Asha constantly pushing him and making him out as evil when he's doing everything with good intentions. Magnifico at the start of the film isn't evil, but actually very complex. He's coming out of this as an actual good character that is scared that all his hard work would go to shit if he messes up even once. Even in the scene where he grants someone else's wishes instead of Grandpa's and keeps their wishes from ever being granted to prove a point to Asha, while shitty absolutely, is a move that you can't really blame him for doing. Man's just doing what he can to make sure his kingdom is fine. And sometimes you do have to prove a point. Magnifico builds all of his character making sure that the kingdom is fine. So when he witnesses a strange new power that not even his books have answers to, he immediately thinks about going to dark magic, believing that it's the only way he can prevent his past from ever happening again, and is willing to possibly lose himself to protect his kingdom. Sure, he sounds a bit rash, but given how this unknown power has never been documented or possibly even existed, can you blame him? He sounds like a very good king here. Why am I supposed to dislike him? My man even listens and takes influence from his wife, showing that he's a good husband, despite the film making him suddenly have an ego, because what's character progression if not an obstacle? After putting the book down, Magnifico decides to round up the people of Rosas and asks them if they have any clues on if they've noticed anything suspicious. But before we go to that, I'm just going to quickly pause because I do want to show you another scene that does another sly technique to make Magnifico out as a villain. That scene is when Asha discovers Star and they go into the courthouse only to get caught by her friends. The friends are understandably very concerned what might happen to them. Slimy little cunt even says this line,
"Magic is forbidden by anyone other than Magnifico, also the only one authorized to grant wishes!"
To which Asha replies with this.
Self-authorized.
Shut the fuck up, you entitled raisin. The reason why Magnifico is self-authorized in his magic is because he made the kingdom. This isn't a case where he just comes from a line of very powerful kings and his lust for power has turned him evil. He was the one who built this place from the ground up. Of course he's going to make sure he's the only one who can grant wishes. Who the fuck wouldn't? And again, there has never been shown to be any consequences with someone going off on their own. Magnifico never made it a point that the people have to rely on him. He just gives them the option to go to him and they take it every single time. And because these people put so much of themselves into their wish being granted, it's no wonder when certain characters lose a part of their personalities as a result. It's not Magnifico's fault that everyone in this kingdom is about as deep as a puddle. Anyways, that was a bit of a tangent. I'm sorry. Let's get back to the scene of Magnifico gathering the people. Now, I don't know about you, but gathering your people to help you in a time of crisis, to me, sounds not like a villain, but more of a concerned leader trying to make sure his kingdom doesn't go to shit. Magnifico is rightfully scared on what might happen to his kingdom and is ready to do whatever it takes to make sure that that fate doesn't come to fruition. So how do the people respond to this? Do they help him? No. His people have the nerve, the sheer fucking audacity to question him on what he means by evidence, something I know was started by Cripple, but it still counts, and demand that he give them a wish ceremony, to which he finally has enough and says,
"Is that all you can think about? A wish-granting ceremony?"
And the movie shows a character giving him this reaction, like it's supposed to be funny. Magnifico is perfectly justified in being angry with the citizens of Rosas. Here he is asking his people to help him, something he has probably never done before, to find a threat that, as far as he knows, would destroy everything he spent years creating and keeping intact, and all they have to respond to this perfectly valid concern is to keep talking about their wishes being granted, completely ignoring the fact that they were just told that their precious kingdom could be in mortal danger. The absolute nerve of these entitled cunts. Magnifico even has to play into their mindset that he will grant the wish of the person who finds the traitor and not grant the wishes of the people who betray the kingdom. That's it. That's literally it. He doesn't say he will have the traitors executed. He doesn't say he will strip them of their free will. Hell, he doesn't even say he will have them exiled from the island. He just went, no wish for you. And because this kingdom's people are so self-centered, this tiny consequence had them all shocked and even afraid. They're allowed to still be on the island and reap the benefits of the kingdom's hard work. But oh no, the idea of their wish never being granted is just, it's too much to hear. How the fuck is any of this scene supposed to make me feel hatred towards Magnifico? This is all completely justified. A classic Disney villain would have straight up threatened their people with death if they found out someone was betraying them. But Magnifico was just like, nah, if you're a rat, you ain't getting your wish, tough shit. A slap on the wrist is treated like it's a legitimate threat in this movie. My god, we need to bring back actual fascism in kids' movies. So of course, Magnifico, after being humiliated and taken advantage of again by his own kingdom, bursts into song and goes through a musical journey that shows him not as a villain who was always there because of a few red flags, but a fallen hero who, in wanting to protect his kingdom, goes to dark places and goes to desperate measures. The song This Is the Thanks I Get is the perfect embodiment of all the issues Magnifico had to put up with for so many years. From the very start, Magnifico was doing a job that was constantly giving. He spent so many years of his life mastering his sorcery and worked so hard so that he could perform miracles for the disadvantaged, and rather than using his power for selfish gains, longed to share his talents and discoveries with people who he wanted to see get rewarded for their hard work and efforts, in a place they could call home. He was a monarch, sure, but he did all he could to serve his kingdom, all he could to make sure his people lived lives as comfortable and flourishing as it could be, refusing to let bad dreams or desires ruin the paradise he's created. He gives and gives and gives and gives. He does whatever he can to make his people happy, and all he's rewarded with is more. Rosas, despite being the kingdom he rules over, has him in an iron grip. He's surrounded by people who demand that their wishes and desires, no matter how silly or even evil, be granted, and question his status when they don't get their way. They feel entitled to their wishes and don't like the idea of them being rejected by the king, almost like a child who throws a tantrum when their parent tells them no. Magnifico has built a society where no matter how much he feeds and waters the lives of his people, his sacrifices and hard work are simply not good enough. There is always another wish that he must grant, another demand he must fulfill, otherwise he's seen as unreasonable or cruel when he finally puts his foot down, even when his reasons are perfectly understandable. Magnifico is a sorcerer who has been taken advantage of by everyone around him. Everybody respects him solely because of what he can do to benefit them and them alone. Nobody stops to consider that the least they could do is show some gratitude, some inclination that they are thankful for all the work Magnifico has done to create this utopia of peace and progress. He has done for years, essentially, a thankless job. And rather than the song showing that he was a jerk all along, it's a song that makes us relate and even sympathize with the villain. Something I never thought I would ever say towards a Disney song. This song does not sound like someone who is evil. It sounds like someone who is done with people walking all over him. Someone who wishes that he was recognized for what he's done by the people he helps every single day. Someone who just wants a little respect. Magnifico's turn to the dark side didn't scream classic Disney villain to me, but it was actually really tragic. It was the culmination of years of stress and longing for someone to appreciate the sacrifices he made to the world and his kingdom. He just wanted someone to look out and think about him for a change. Sure, he sounded egotistical throughout the song because the movie ties itself into knots trying to make him an asshole, but even under all the ego and forced lyrics, there is a layer of sadness and rage that cannot be ignored. Sadness and rage that adds so much more complexity to Magnifico. The song is also complete shit, but that's a discussion for later. Magnifico was not a classic Disney villain, but a man who was driven to madness because of his own people. A man who lived in a toxic world that constantly took from him and gave nothing back in return, making him finally snap. How am I supposed to see this as anything but tragic? You know what could have saved all of this mental gymnastics? One tiny change that would save most of this story. The start of the movie opens up with a book that explains the history of Magnifico and Rosas. Make it so that that book was a lie. The twist could have been that everything was fabricated, and Magnifico was actually the reason his family and land burned to the ground. Then, as a way to rewrite history, he could have murdered the remaining people and built up the kingdom over their bodies, lying to newcomers that his kingdom is a new paradise for all of them to enjoy. So once you learn about Rosas, you get this feeling that everything is too perfect, too whimsical, too clean. It would provide the same feeling of discomfort towards the audience like how Pleasure Island did in Pinocchio in 1940. This simple change would save at least 50% of this movie's problems because I would at least know that Magnifico is an actual threat that I'd want to see be defeated. Hell, if you want a more subtle villain archetype, make him like Gaston. You could write Magnifico where he is completely driven by his ego, and that's what causes him to go corrupt with power. And none of this blatant change in character shit we saw in the film. Make it clear right from the minute we see him that this guy is bad news. Like him staring at his reflection with love or being very condescending to Asha right from the get-go. And if you really want to make him despicable, have him be very harsh to people who disobey him. Make him banish people from the island, torture them to get information. Make it so that when he destroys the wishes, the people would just keel over and die. You can bring them back at the end, it's a Disney movie, you can get away with it. Some might say that that sounds dark, and my response is, good. Old villains were like this, if not worse. Bring this back. If you wanted him to be evil, then you should let him be really evil. Embrace it. Revel in it. Make him fucking despicable. Make him a fucking demon. That's the thing that Disney used to be so good at. Classic villains like Scar, Ursula, and Jafar were evil to their core. There was no questioning that their ways were cruel and unjust, which is what made them easy to recognize as threats and enjoy watching. Even when you had more subversive villains like Gaston and General Silver, you could still understand and realize how they would be villains on your second watch. They're men who manipulated, betrayed, and backstabbed to get what they wanted, regardless of their victims' feelings on the matter. And there is something that ties all of them together. These classic villains, despite all their differences in designs and settings, all had one thing in common: selfishness. Every famous Disney villain was doing what they did to achieve some kind of self-centered goal from the very start of their respective movies. That is what made them villainous. Magnifico was not selfish. Not from the start. He's certainly painted by the story to be someone who is selfish because of some of his actions, but the reality that the movie is trying so hard to hide from you is that Magnifico's selfishness only appears when he's fully corrupted by the book. Before that transformation, he was someone who had his and his kingdom's best interests in mind. Someone who had strict but fair rules on what wishes he would grant and which ones he would not. He was a man of integrity, who grew fed up with everyone demanding that he fulfill their selfish desires and getting nothing in return. That's not a villain, but a human being. One that was way more interesting than what their own movie was giving them credit for. How anyone can get out of this movie believing that he was a villain throughout is truly beyond me. let's talk about the soundtrack of this film, and how the songs were ultimately done wrong. Now I understand that music is incredibly subjective, so if you like the soundtrack then cool, more power to you. I'm just going to be diving into the thematics and structure of the songs and why I didn't think they succeeded in what they were trying to do with the music. I'm also not at all educated when it comes to technical terms or musical theory, so by all means take this part of the review with a pinch of salt if you want. I'm also going to be singing, prepare for cringe. Anyways, Wish has a total of 7 songs, with 2 being the same song just sung in a different context. You know, usual stuff for Disney. The first song, Welcome to Rosas, is the song that I'm going to call the lore dump. It's solely all about world building, which is something that usually always happens with the opening song in a Disney film. These songs usually not only build up the world of the movie, but also the core themes of the film, and establishes characters that, if they're really good, foreshadow how they will interact with the world. In Encanto, the song The Family Madrigal introduces the family and how Mirabel fits or does not fit into the world of Encanto. Circle of Life from The Lion King introduces the Pride Lands and how all the world is connected through the lands and the animals. Bells of Notre Dame from The Hunchback of Notre Dame introduces many facets of the story, including the villain and his relation towards Quasimodo. World-building songs are a staple in Disney history, so it's to be expected that Wish would do one as well. However, Welcome to Rosas illustrates the emptiness of the world of this city because the wish granting is all they talk about throughout the whole song. We don't get to hear how the people live their lives, what jobs they do, activities they have, other parts of Rosa's culture, nothing. The song just talks about wishes and a bit of the king, and that's it. Look, I understand that this song is Asha introducing the world to foreigners, but you'd think as a tour guide she would advertise more of the city besides the main attraction. The world-building song, in an ironic twist of events, failed to actually build up the world. I came in and out of this song with maybe 2 of my many questions answered about how the city functions on a day-to-day basis, and even then I still have no idea how someone makes a living here besides getting their wish granted. There's a funny irony in how a kingdom built on wishes has such a soulless song advertising it. And if you look at the lyrics and listen to how much they value wishes here, honestly, if you sung this with a more sinister instrumental, you could make this song out to be Asha recruiting people into a cult. It's a world-building song that sounds like it's grooming you into its clutches. Seriously, let me show you.
Welcome to Rosas. Come on, come this way, where the greatest creations are on display. There's no other place just full of surprise, where your dreams and your reality can collide. You wanna dance on beat or have hair touched down to your feet? Go to outer space? Well, hey, you've come to the right place.
Do you see how creepy that sounds? I didn't even change the lyrics. Fortunately, not all the songs are bad, with the second song, At All Costs, being a much better song with a more pleasing and softer melody. This song is a duet between Asha and Magnifico, and something that makes this song interesting is that you can view the lyrics from 2 different points of view, wholesomely loving from Asha's perspective or sinisterly sweet from Magnifico's, almost like his singing and demeanor is to lull Asha into a false sense of security. And when you hear the lyrics, it definitely can be viewed that way.
If happiness was a tangible thing, it would be you.
Jump in quality, I don't think that this song succeeded in what it was trying to do, my reason being Magnifico himself. Magnifico throughout this whole song isn't giving off any villainous vibes. His acting, expressions, and voice is giving off the impression of someone who greatly loves his kingdom and genuinely thinks that he's doing good for his people. This isn't giving the vibes of, say, Mother Knows Best from Tangled, where you can clearly hear evil intentions oozing out of Mother Gothel when she's trying to sweetly scare Rapunzel with outlandish tales of the outside world. The softness of the melody of At All Costs, and combined with Chris Pines' voice being very relaxed and warm, makes the view of this song having some evil underneath it feel far less believable. I mean, given the fact that I've spent probably too long talking about why Magnifico isn't really a classic villain, there's nothing that I can grasp in this song as being obviously evil. A song that did this hero-villain duo way better was Love is an Open Door from Frozen. While it was sweet and bubbly like At All Costs, the lyrics did a really good job at subtly telling you that Hans was out to manipulate Anna. The supposed lyrics of them having loads in common on the first listen becomes much more sinister when you hear it again with the twist in mind. With this song, not really. Still, I'll give it to the film that it's a nice song regardless. It just didn't work as it was probably intended. The next song is This Wish, sung by Asha after she was scolded by her grandfather. And like her grandfather, Asha sings a song that gets just so much wrong. For one, the song is telling the wrong message. From lyrics like "So I look up at the stars to guide me and throw caution to every warning sign," to "Now I've got all this freedom in my bones but I've still got the lid on so it doesn't overflow," this song is painting things like self-restraint and hesitation to be bad things, which is not a good lesson to teach kids. Second, I like how wishing is so much of a part of this kingdom's culture that despite knowing that the system isn't as perfect as she thought, Asha still goes on wishing on a star in hopes that it will change everything, never once thinking that she could be in charge of her own destiny. This film's insistence on relying on wishes yet has a down with the system message too is just making my brain hurt. Third, Asha does not come out looking good in this song. This song wants to paint her as being a freedom-loving character that just wants what's best for her kingdom, but this is all because Asha firmly believes that every wish should be granted regardless of how bad they could possibly be. She didn't get her way and is now singing about how this paradise of a kingdom isn't enough. Fantastic. This song's existence is so flimsy it hurts. Now, some might think that I'm being a bit too critical towards this song, and the reason why I'm being particularly harsh with it is because this song's outcome was wrong. And I'm not just talking about how Asha gets rewarded with a Luma that helps her no questions asked. This song should have been, like I mentioned much earlier in this review, to be this movie's Let It Go, where Asha would sing about how much she wants for her kingdom and naively thinks that granting all their wishes is the solution, only to realize by the end of the movie that her whole philosophy of relying on wishes is wrong and she should instead strive to rebuild her kingdom without the use of them. The problem is that that wasn't the fucking ending, so this song is actually showing that relying on wishes and accepting them all as equal is actually a good thing. The wrong lesson is being learned here, which is why I really don't like this song. Song number 4 is I Am a Star, which is sung by woodland creatures that gained unholy life by a star from outer space. Because Disney.
I'm a star.
Watch out world, here I are.
Okay, moving on. Our next song is the villain song that blew up Twitter when a portion of it was advertised. This is the Thanks I Get. And all I gotta say is, based. My joking aside, this was such a bad villain song. For one, the lyrics are trying way too hard to make this guy cartoonishly evil, unreasonable, delusional, and smug, all out of nowhere.
I can't help it if mirrors love my face. Yeah, I got these genes from outer space. And I'm passionate. I'm not petulant. Someone praise me for my benevolence. You're so brilliant. Oh, that's the least you could say. You're cute and strong and bold and brave. Thanks.
Everything that Magnifico is saying sounds out of character to the king we've been seeing throughout most of the film. So this song is already falling apart from the first fucking verse. They're also very unsubtly making him obsessed with mirrors because they want that one reference and joke at the end to work, and my goodness, these people will move heaven and earth to make it happen regardless of how bad or out of place it is in the story. The references in this movie are insulting. 2. The song isn't threatening. Magnifico is supposed to be losing his mind in rage and is resorting to the dark book to keep his power over the people. But that anger is not conveyed throughout the song. He sounds like someone that had a bad day and is venting to their mirror rather than having a psychotic break. And I'm not going to say that it's because Chris Pine can't emote that strong when he sings, because he can. The end of the song has a part where he finally sounds genuinely mad, and it has a fairly solid oomph to it. If he was like that for more of the song, it would have been better. So the fault is not on Chris, it's just the song. And 3rd, the melody. It's just wrong. It's way too poppy, way too upbeat, and way too safe. Nothing about this tune gives the vibe of a villain song whatsoever. There's no big choir, no bassy drums, no big orchestra, nothing. You could have any character in this movie sing this song with minor changes to the lyrics and it would have the exact same effect. Fuck dude, you could sing these lyrics over an edgy instrumental and it would sound immediately better. Listen.
I give the clothes off Benito's back. Ha! If you really needed that. If your home were to crumble, or if you were in trouble, I'd let you live here for free, and I don't even charge you rent. And all I really want is just a little respect. This is the thanks I get.
We had songs like Be Prepared, Hellfire, and Poor Unfortunate Souls when we grew up. Why does the villain song in this movie have no bite to it? This song was truly fucking bad. But the sixth song is where it gets even worse. The song Knowing What I Know Now is, in my opinion, both the best and the worst song in the whole movie. I know that sounds weird, so let me explain. I do find the beat and overall energy of the song to be very good. It's sung very, very well and gave me serious Broadway vibes when I listened to the song for the first time. It's the one song in this soundtrack that I would gladly listen to over and over. But that's where my praise ends. The actual song, given the context of the movie, is really bad. Here are 3 instrumentals of songs in this movie. I'm just going to play you a few seconds of them so that I don't get sniped by Disney. Which one of these melodies do you think sounds like a villain song? I think we all collectively agree that out of these 3 beats, this one has the most qualities of a villain song. You'd think so with all the dramatic drums, right? This instrumental sounds like songs like Savages from Pocahontas, Kill the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, or Be Prepared from The Lion King. Songs that sound like it comes from a villain's mouth. Well, that's the problem. This threatening tune is the backdrop of a hero song. A song where you are supposed to cheer on the heroes taking down the system. This song alone, I think, perfectly captures the core issue with this movie's music. It's the tone's complete misdirection. This song's instrumental is not that of a heroic uprising. It has the melody and tone of a villain rallying up his troops to go to war. Don't believe me? Here's the song's first part and chorus, sung by Magnifico, about Asha. And listen to how much of the lyrics I needed to change to make it into a villain song.
You've been deceived. Asha's so sweet is not the girl she claims to be. She's more cunning than I could have ever comprehended. When I built these walls and she came through, this is not what I expected or intended. But now that it's happened, I swear we'll fight it. Cause now I've seen her show her true colors and shades of green. Saying that your wish is unsafe because of me, and that's a lie, 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 lie. And I know I can't do this on my own. And if it's not us, then who and when? If we don't fight, she knows she wins. Not alone, knowing what I know now, knowing what we know now. The way she'll go, there's no amount. I won't sit back, watch this play out. That's my vow. Knowing what I know now, knowing what we know now.
What was that? Like one verse and a couple words? The rest was just me changing the pronouns. This doesn't sound heroic. This sounds dangerous, and while that was likely the intention to show off the realities of a revolution, this film is gassing up heroes who are taking down a villain who said no to Asha. I seriously don't want you to forget that this is what caused this whole story to happen. This movie requires you to feel sympathy for selfish assholes, and I'm not buying it. I would not be so frustrated with this song if it didn't sound more evil than the fucking villain song. How in God's name did they fuck this up? If this was a way to subvert a traditional Disney trope, then I guess, congrats, you've shown us why this trope should never be subverted. Gold star for effort, I guess. And the final song, which is a reprising of this wish, is a song sung to defeat the villain, perfectly symbolizing that even though these people have lived in great prosper and protection even without their wishes, they've learned that it's more important to make sure their own wishes get granted over everything else. They beat the villain with a fucking song. God, I miss when villains would just get straight up killed. So to conclude, this movie's soundtrack is so bad. There's way too many tonal issues, the lyrics to half these songs are so on the nose and poorly done, and the messages they tell and hype up are nothing short of spiteful, manipulative, and downright harmful. It's been a staple in Disney history to have songs that tell amazing stories and dive into deep character conflicts and emotions in just a few short melodies. These songs helped shape people's childhoods and lives, and their villain songs made people afraid, threatened, and even uncomfortable. Old Disney was able to show off the power of a beautiful soundtrack. Wish's soundtrack has none of that. The most emotional song is the song that plays in the credits, and I only say that because it is the most perfectly designed song to make you want to cry to a point where it sounds corporate. Wish's music fails in almost all regards, and to have the 100-year anniversary film's music be this bad is nothing short of depressing. So messaging. Messaging is very important in a Disney movie. Disney films are played for kids to make them learn valuable lessons in ways that their parents can't possibly teach them. So what lessons does one get from watching Wish? What messages does this film advertise to kids and future generations? Well, after giving the story a lot of thought, and having friends alongside bounce ideas off of me, this is what I got. Here is the core message of Wish. There is no such thing as a bad wish. A wish is the core part of who you are. It's what makes your soul. If it can't be fulfilled, then life will be sad and meaningless. No one should ever go through the pain of realizing that the dream they once had could never be. To do so would be horrid, and it's an attack on who you are. Don't look for other ways to live your life. Don't make connections that will change who you are and mold you into a different person. Keep the wish and dream you have alive, no matter how big or unrealistic it may be. But in doing so, you can't achieve your dreams on your own. Hard work, independence, and agency for one's own future will only get you so far. The system is against you, so if you can, try and cheat your way through so that your dream can become a reality. Don't celebrate when you see people you know get their wishes granted. Instead, look inwards and feel how sad it is that it wasn't you that was given the chance. Don't reconsider another path that will drive you away from your dream, because to do that, you'll lose your soul. Your dream is precious and pure. You have so much to give to the world, and the people in power just need to give you a chance to see that. Keep praying and wishing that one day you will be the lucky person who has their wish granted, and only then will you feel full. Your wish is the most important thing of all, and if anyone tells you that you're being unreasonable or acting spoilt, then dismiss them. They don't understand how much a dream can mean to someone. If the system provides you comfort, but keeps you waiting for that day to come, destroy the system and take it as your own. Comfort is a farce that makes it so that the system can stay in power, and if it's in your hands, you can achieve every dream you want. Let your dreams and the stars guide you. Let your reality remind you that without your dream, you'd have no purpose. And no matter what, keep wishing. I've seen Alan Moore stories and straight up propaganda movies that tell better messages than this. Disney, what the actual fuck is wrong with you? Seriously, that is such a cruel message to tell kids. It's so disgusting, so delusional, so naive. No one should ever be told that they can't achieve things on their own or with the help of their family and friends. Telling kids that the system changing is the only way they can achieve dreams is pathetically nihilistic. Everything that this movie did was wrong. Dangerously wrong. Nothing valuable can be taken from this film besides the surface level message of follow your dreams, which while yes is a nice thing to say to kids, falls apart the moment you add all of this delusional bullshit onto it. Wish has to be, by far, the worst movie Disney has ever made. It gets every single part of what made them great disgustingly wrong, parading and showing off references with the tact and respect of a con artist. It tells you a story so simplistic and with such little nuance that it's shocking that they didn't scrap the script after the first few pages. I have never seen a film this pathetic in my whole life. And the only reason that people will likely not see this movie for what it is, because they will watch this film and think back to all the other Disney movies they watched when they were young. Stories that were engaging, passionate, and immortal. Films that just get better with age, now living in an era where sincerity and true goodness are seen as things to mock and degrade. Fuck this movie, fuck the message it tells, and fuck Disney. I'm so happy that this once great empire is burning to the fucking ground. Way to celebrate your 100 years of existence by revealing to us the monstrous, twisted, and shallow beast you've truly become. For the love of God, Disney, do better. This was absolutely atrocious. My name is Manga Writer, and if you excuse me, I'll be happily watching films made by Disney when they actually cared. Great art lives on forever. Pieces of shit like this will be forgotten in time. What an absolutely painful way to celebrate 100 years.